John DeMartini. This is one of the most amazing and inspiring shows that you can listen into. If you want to be on the edge of your seats, if you want to open up your heart, if you want to expand your mind, and you want to meet incredible people, stay tuned, because you're just about to experience a transformative radio show that will change your life. And you're listening to the Dr. Pat Show that's coming up right next.
Welcome to the Dr. Pat Show. Talk radio to thrive by. Powerful, inspiring, and coming to you live, bringing you stories of people like you and me, busting through and living life full out. Get ready to dare to wonder what your life would be like if you knew you could not fail.
Hey, everybody, I want to welcome you. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Alexis Hughes is in the house. And this is, for me, having a conversation with Alexis. Beyond anything we're going to be able to say about her today, you know, when you sign up for your passion and purpose in life, you know, each of you thinks about it. What do you want to be? You want to go up to be a this, you want to do a that, on a career change, I don't want to do accounting anymore. What do you pick? Now, if you decide you're not going to pick what your heart is telling you to do or your soul is driving you to do, then fasten your seatbelt for that. But today, if you're the most incredible Alexis Hughes and you are in the world and doing a show about death doula, grief guide, unapologetic advocate for living fully and dying well, then you are going to capture every conversation, every step, every widget, every gidget that you get to face along the way. Today, one of my favorites, Icarus, laughed as he fell. Except if you watch the movies, The Eternals. Alexis. Oh, come on now, Alexis. You know Eternals brought Icarus back to the fantasy world. Nobody even knew what Icarus was, right?
I know. Go. You bring a good point. You bring a good point.
But let's talk about that story for a minute, because it's a fascinating one that most people don't understand. And what I mean by they don't understand, I mean, if you want to go to the Marvel universe, there's an interpretation. But if you really look at that character, or you really listen to the tagline, too close to the sun. And if you live your life with that level of fear, I want to ask you this question. How does it show up for people? Because we've taken the myth of Icarus and we've really caused it to be a kind of weird thing. So why do we fear flying too high?
Risk.
Boom.
We're all afraid of seeing it burn down. And we've used Icarus, like you're saying, as a cautionary tale. Don't be too much. Don't be too big. Don't be too anything. Don't be too of whatever. Because, Icarus, he flew too close to the sun. Yes, but he got closer than anyone else.
No kidding.
And so, it's a cautionary tale of keeping us small and keeping us where we are and our feet planted on the ground. It denies us the ability and desire to entertain dreams.
Yeah. For a really long time, I used to use the phrase rule of thumb until I found out what it meant. And I'm not kidding. It was, from my understanding of the way it was explained to me, rule of thumb was what husbands did to keep their wives under control, right? Remember that?
Yep.
Okay. So I don't use that anymore. But it's all along the lines of what you're talking about. And when we live like that, let me tell you, what do our survival instincts are into? What kind of hit does it take when we live from that place of can't get it out, I'm afraid, I'm not going to do it, right?
Yeah, your body continuously thinks you're being hunted for sport. When you live with that amount of anxiety and risk aversion and fear, you are the chipmunk in the bush hiding from the fox at all times. And your body never relaxes. Your neural pathways and all of those things that have kept you alive thus far, your evolutionary features, think you're constantly being hunted for sport. Like I said, you're constantly in danger, you're constantly in danger, you're constantly in danger. So you don't have the mental capacity to dream, to explore, to take even a small risk. Like we all joke about how millennials are afraid to pick up the phone and call the doctor's office because of our anxiety. It's because we're constantly inundated with, oh my God, anxiety, because we don't take any risks.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. I play a sport and, I get teased about it a lot. I'm like ping pong Patty is what they call me, right? But I played this sport, and in order to play it well, I don't play, I play an offensive game. If I play a safe game, I never win. Do you know what I mean? Now, that's not true of every sport, but when you have a sport with a ball that moves that fast, and I looked at this the other day because I just asked myself, I think, Pat, you're playing not to lose. You're not playing to win. And then I look at the rest of my life and I ask myself, okay, there's a cost to this. Isn't there a cost to this, Alexis?
Yeah, and you stumbled on something there that I think is important. You're not playing to win, you're not playing to lose. You're playing to play. The love of the game is what is important to
Yeah.
you. It's like even if you lose because you played aggressively and like you made some wild swings or whatever, it was fun.
No kidding.
It was
Yeah.
fun. And at the end of it, did you die?
No.
No. No, you didn't. You took the risk and had fun and didn't die at the end. Great game.
But let's talk about that because this idea of staying safe. It's funny. I talked about this on an earlier show. I never forgot what Gloria Steinem said to me a bunch of decades ago. And I remember her looking at me and saying, before Dr. Pat existed, I remember her looking at me and saying, Pat, listen, you got to do something outrageous every day in your life. And I thought about that and I do try. I do try. And I love that term because what's outrageous for me may not be outrageous for Emily or anybody else. So, what do we lose in this game of life, Alexis, when we are just barely doing it or just doing enough? What's lost?
Joy. You lose so much joy by just not having any audacity. And that's what I recommend for folks who are in like my life coaching programs or people that are I'm working with at the end of life is just have a little extra audacity today. Because look around at all the people who are having the times of their lives just because they have the audacity. How many successful people do you know that may or may not be good at their jobs that just walk into a room like they own the place and people go, yes, follow that person, you know, just do it.
What you're talking about is a step-by-step process for a lot of people. But I want to ask you the backdrop for this. A couple of people heard me tell one of my childhood stories at a keynote. And at the end of it, they walked up to me and said, now we know. And I'm like, okay, like what? What do we know? Now I know. And I said, okay, you want to share? And they said, now I know how you became so resilient. And I want to talk about that because often we talk about our childhood and our systems and our trauma as the burden we carry until we decide not to do that. But tell us about how those things can train us to do greatness or not.
Yeah. So it all goes back to kind of like my tagline of, but did you die? Look at everything that you've been through. You have lived through every day, every hardship, every bad thing that has ever happened to you, and you're still here. So, looking forward to living authentically and living your best life full of joy is what in front of you
Yeah.
in any way worse than what was behind you? No, especially not if you just take it by the horns and you make it do what you want
Mhm.
to do. Having that confidence and knowing that, like, this risk that I take of asking for a raise, setting a boundary, moving to another city, the end of it is not going to end in your demise. You might fail at it, but then you've learned and you try again. there is something positive to be taken from every risk, even if it doesn't go the way you want it to.
Absolutely. I
But you're not
wouldn't
going to
be
die.
here. I'm telling you now. Now you're preaching to me because I did a show earlier today and I shared something. Somebody had asked me, "What are you afraid?" It was a weird question. It was like, "What are you afraid not to do?" I said, "Afraid not to do." Why don't you? They said, "Okay, what are you afraid? What are you unafraid to do?" I said, "I'm not afraid to fail." And I'm not afraid to use the word failure either. It's in my tagline. And I said, look, if you want people to move on the needle of their own life, you have to be able to talk the language. I think it's great. I have a positive network. But let's talk about our buddy Icarus for a minute, because I imagine what that ride must have been like, right?
Right. And so, yes, Icarus failed. And yes, depending on your interpretation of the story, he died, or the sea embraced him, whichever way you choose to believe about that. But what we learned from him was that it could be done, that it was achievable, and he set an example for rising. So then, how many other people built wings and then flew just a little lower and enjoyed the horizon? Even if you fail, you're someone else's inspirational tale.
Yeah.
You don't have to look at failure as there's no moral judgment upon a failure. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
I was
do.
just counseling a friend last night who was considering ending a relationship, and I was like, this isn't a moral judgment on your failure of a relationship. You have simply both grown past where you needed each other, and now you are on to the next part of the journey, and that's okay. There's no failure in learning and improving. And I don't think a lot of people get past, like you said, the word failure. That's not a moral judgment on you or the caliber of your character or anything like that. Point to anybody in a room. Look in a room and find one person that hasn't failed at something. You can't. Failure is a part of the human experience, and you're not going to be human and you're not going to have any experience without any kind of failure.
I want to talk about this too, because I want to talk about some of the examples you have. But, look, I look back at this because there's a big conversation about people asking me a lot of these type questions now with their lunch. And I remember looking at somebody and I said, wait a minute, you ever ride a bike? And like, oh yeah, ride a bike. I said, really? Okay, so you got a big bike now? Oh, I got like 1,500 gears. Okay, great. What was your first bike? Oh, my first bike. Did you have training wheels? Oh yeah, I trained. Okay, did you fall? Oh yeah, I fell. So you failed. And you could hear a pin drop. I said, look, we created a narrative on this, but let's talk about what does bold living look like? Because, and I said to my friend, you're like some Tour de France kind of guy now. Like, what if you would have thrown that bike in the river at age 5?
Yeah.
But what does bold look like? Because the other side of those challenges, see, failure is not an end game. There are amazing results. What are some of the results you've seen with people?
Finding their authentic self is really the biggest one that I see, and it happens in different flavors. So when we talk about living boldly, we need to separate that from recklessness. And
Yes.
living boldly is with intention. When you're just when you have the audacity and you're just being big and you're being, that guy or whatever, you're being reckless. You're just doing things and seeing what sticks. But when you're living boldly, you are setting your sun and you're moving towards it with purpose. And in my coaching and everything like that, I want people to find out who their authentic self is and go towards that person. And we fear embarrassment, and as the kids call it, cringe and things like that. But when you move towards who your authentic self is and you start to live boldly, none of that matters. You don't care who's talking about you, who's laughing at you, what anybody's opinions are of you. And that is so freeing. You are literally then strapping on wings and flying towards your sun, because what anybody tells you is not going to tell you otherwise.
Yeah.
And being able to release the shackles of, I don't say attachment, because we do have attachment to things. We love people, we love our pets, we like to be places or whatever. But separating yourself from the need of approval of those attachments is what I always gently try to steer people towards, because then they can find the thing that they want to live boldly towards when they stop worrying about what everybody else is going to think.
Yeah. And this is one of the most important things to remember now. I did a show earlier and I said, I'm noticing the spark in people's eyes again, especially the entrepreneurial eye spark, right? And it's so refreshing. And when you talk to people about what got that spark in your eye again, they talk about what you're talking about. They talk about navigating fear and failure, but building up such emotional strength. And I want to talk to you about the role that you play in your coaching program to help people, because almost everyone I've talked to said they didn't do it alone. And I'm one of them. I'm not here because I'm an island. I'm here because I got a lot of coaches. What have you learned with your coaching clients? What do you help them with?
I am there, my Lord of the Rings fans, this one's for you. I am there to be your Samwise Gamgee. Those movies were not about Frodo. They were about Sam, because without Sam, none of the rest of that would have happened. As a coach, it is my job to be your hype man, your cheerleader, your ever present voice of encouragement, because we've lost, especially like since COVID and the invention of the Zoom meeting and all like that, we've lost community. We don't have our circle like we used to. A lot of times people don't have someone that's like, you can do this. I believe in you. You're good enough. You're worthy. But that's my whole job. And I say I made it a job because it's what I wanted to help people with.
Yeah.
But people, coaching is weird because it's like, I just want to be your friend.
Yeah.
I want to be your friend. I want to be the friend that you deserve to have. But you're also then entering into a coaching program, because then you're guaranteed results. You're going to walk away with an active plan. You're going to walk away with results. You're going to walk away with, neuroscience backed strategy to do these things, which is why I've put myself through school. But I'm here to be your friend. I am
Yeah.
here literally to believe in you and help you understand that that thing that you want to do is absolutely possible. You've just been trained your whole life to stay small, not stick your head up, don't draw attention, or whatever your trauma may have done to you over your life, to not aim for more. We're taught to like be ashamed of being arrogant or greedy and all like that. And no, get that right out.
I know. And what you're talking about and is so important because the study I've done studies in women's studies. Now, I must caveat is haven't studied a lot of young men except at an airplane building company. However, we women in a lot of ways have been asked and are being asked to do something different and create a different narrative. And this is the narrative. And you're going to butt up against partners, spouses, bosses, moms, and dads that think you have lost it. Isn't that the whole idea in talking about Icarus, right? It's being able to let go of the honey, you really don't think you want to do that, do you? Honey, should you girl, I know you were feisty as a kid, but do you really you want to do that? Isn't that what you help people overcome? Because if you can't overcome that, you're stuck. You're like
Right.
you're not moving.
Right. And a lot of times, one of the things that I also help people with is not defining themselves in terms of being a plus one. You're not someone's wife, mother, child, partner, sister, etc. You are you. And like,
Exactly.
yes, those people that we care about's opinions are important. But unless they are contributing to your life in a like financial, intimate, or a way of feeding you, either physically at a table or your spirit or your emotion, their input is a tier down. And when they say, well, do you think you really want to do this? I don't know. This seems risky. Why don't you think I can? Because when you ask them that question, they're going to answer you from the frame of a person that they know. So when, like, I ask my dad things like that, he answers me in a frame of, I am still 5 years old. I am still in high school. I am a 40 plus year old, person in a doctoral program. These are two different perceptions. So clocking where the perception is coming from is often helpful, because then you can discount it in a loving way. Well, why don't you think I can? Well, I think that you're impulsive and you're this and you're that. And I'm like, oh yes, how I was at 13. Excellent. We've not gotten past that. And you can
Yeah.
just be like, neat, filed, and then move right along. So keeping the relationships that are positive and supportive of you is really incredible. But sometimes you have to take some of those and just be careful what information you give them. I drip feed some people in my life who are a little more of a critical nature, and then only tell them about the successes. So, what are you going to do? Criticize the success? Shush,
Yeah.
be quiet. So, understanding where the people that you are confiding in and seeking this approval, where their perspective is coming from, and then also don't tell them everything. You don't have to. And that also will shape the relationship that you get and this kind of support you receive.
I would have loved to do the intake on Icarus. What do you think the Icarus self-inquiry might have looked like? Because, part of this is we hold on to that myth, which some people look at it. What is that? I remember in my HR job, I was asked the famous question, how do you see the glass? Is it half empty and half full? And I remember looking at that big paying consultant and say, I don't even understand the question. Why does anybody fill a glass halfway?
Right.
I was like, well, we have to choose one. I said, no, I don't, I'm not going to choose one. I don't understand the question. Why are you not filling the glass all the way up?
I understand that the box of this question is, am I optimist or am I pessimist? Either way, I need a refill, please.
Yeah.
Like,
Especially
yes,
in my coffee. If we're going to do
right.
coffee, oh, yeah, okay, I got it. But there's a myth that we carry. And this is part of your work in helping people understand what they can do with that. Because at some point we have to transmute fear, don't we?
Right. Transmutation is one of my favorite words because everybody understands alchemy and what it is. And energy is never created nor destroyed and all that jazz. See, there you go. And we are just taking something that we already have and we are transmuting it into something that we need. The energy is still there. The skin tingling anxiety is still there. But when you take fear and you change the lens and you transmute it into excitement, your body's still reacting the same way, but the way that your brain is processing it into results and future thinking is truly incredible to what it does for your mindset.
You know, I need to talk about laughter because, I mean, this is part of the journey. I love laughter, but I've gone through some very dark periods in my life. So I have this little dog that has little batteries in it. And so I'm getting ready for a big move. And I got this doll out because storage, take him with you. Storage, take her with you. And I'm like, oh no, I need my little laughing doll. Because some days I need a little motivation to laugh. And when you watch this thing, I'm actually going to feature it in a show. When you watch this thing, I dare you not to laugh. But let's talk about it. How do we laugh even in the fall?
Dark humor, neuroscience speaking, is one of the most powerful things that we have towards healing, because it's just like the rule of smile for 1 minute a day in the shower or whatever, and it drops the brain chemicals that make you think you're truly happy, because your brain is going to get on board with whatever you're feeding it. So watching something absolutely absurd and laughing is going to rewire your brain to experience joy. So looking at the small things, finding joy wherever you can, or laughing at a dark joke, There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't make you a bad person, but it does rewire your brain to seek joy.
Yeah. I want to ask you this question too, because I really do believe we have a spark. This is a 9 year. We're going into a 1 year numerology. Many of us who figured that part out realized there will be a change. But I have to tell you for myself, I never saw the changes in my life coming the way they did. And I've made some bold decisions. I'm literally moving and I'm moving across the country. And, you know, oh, how long? I don't know. But see, I'm the kind of person I don't need to know. I just know it's important to do. Now, packing to get that done in the 2 weeks we gave ourselves, hello, with with the car transport. But we have to take a minute and not spend too long fearing the myth. How do you help us with that?
Failure is not worse than regret.
Oh my God.
Failure is not worse than regret. I work with hundreds of people at the end of their lives. I hear about regret every day, all day. And in my coaching and helping people who are still alive and living, what I cannot express to you enough is take the risk. How do you learn to fly? Jump. Even if you flap like a little baby bird and you fall on your face, you're still learning. Jump higher next time until at some point you're going to have enough confidence to launch off the cliff and hit the breeze and go. You cannot live risk avoidant because that R of risk is going to turn into the R of regret. And at that point, nothing can be done because the opportunity has passed. Live now, stay present, have the audacity, and do the thing.
Yeah. You know, the two kissing cousins that I've learned through my recovery program, regret and resentment, and they're like wrestling tag team people. You get into the regret, and before you know it, you just start to sizzle, acidic. What do you want to leave us with? And thank you. And please tell people how they are going to find out more about you because the work that you do helps people spend a lifetime in joy. How did they find out about you, Alexis? How did they work with you?
Yeah, you can find me at withoutfeardoula.com, and I'm Without Fear Doula on most social medias. And I think what we're getting around here too in for Icarus is as he fell, I don't think there was any sort of laughter that he realized he was being a fool. It was joy and
Yeah.
freedom. I did something no one else has done, and I am paying a price for that. But look at now, we still talk about him. His name is never lost to history. Icarus is eternal, immortal, and is a cautionary tale of either caution or inspiration. And he chose seeking the sun over a cage, and you can too. That's the full part of everything is choosing to open the cage door and seek whatever sun you are looking for. And you can do that. You must.
Mm. Thank you, Alexis. What's your website? How do people contact you?
Withoutfeardoula.com.
Thank you for that because the cage part, that's how a lot of people have been feeling. And they are breaking them bars down and they're taking that little birdie baby birdie step out and that's why you're here to help them fly. Thank you so much for everything you do.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. Thank you all. We're going to take a short break. Another show coming right up. And remember what we're talking about here today. Regret. Regret is that dream killer. It's so much more. Alexis did a beautiful job of talking about it. But do you want to go through life saying, I wish I would have? I don't think so. We'll see you next time.